Hey friends, it's Melvin. Thanks for tuning into this episode. Here's just a few quick things I wanted to notify you guys about before we get started. First up, very soon, new episodes will be releasing Wednesday mornings rather than Tuesday. So don't panic if you don't see a new episode on Tuesday. Just wait a little longer and you'll see it in your feed. Second, we've introduced a mailbag. Check those show notes and toward the bottom you'll see a mailbag link. You'll then be able to text us any questions you might have about movies, the movie industry, or any movie/Christian related questions you might have. Then we'll respond in a future episode, so send us your questions now. Up next, Patreon polls, which are available to Patreon supporters at the $3 tier or higher, have been updated. Supporters can now suggest films or shows to be reviewed at the end of each month. The two most liked submissions will become the options for the Patreon poll, so if you want to hear us talk about your favorite movie or show, join our Patreon and start campaigning. And lastly, whether you're a new or longtime listener, please consider writing a review or rating the Cinematic Doctrine podcast on iTunes and Spotify. Apart from financially supporting on Patreon, these are the two most helpful ways to support the show. And that's it. Enjoy the episode. You're listening to Cinematic Doctrine.
Hey, if you just press play, you missed 33 minutes of us talking about Phase 4, just me and Dan's response to that and reaction to it, how it's kind of a weird phase of the Marvel world and kind of a risky phase, an overwhelming phase in terms of amount of content, kind of how we feel about that, how we interpret people's reactions to that, and then even sort of just the way in which we feel Disney needs to start taking more risks, and not just with Hulu, but also specifically on Disney Plus. If you support on Patreon for $3 a month, you get access to that and many other pre-discussions that we have that are about 30 to 50 minutes of talking about stuff. They're all pretty interesting. For the Halloween one, we talked about Werewolf by Night, so if you're into Marvel stuff, you definitely want to hear about that, kind of how the two of us reacted to it. You'll hear about other Patreon supporter bonuses throughout the episode, so we'll be able to save some time here of me talking and pitching to you. But yeah, $3 a month Patreon, that's the bare minimum. You can support more if you'd like, but there's other perks. Tune in further to hear more about that. But you're here to hear about She-Hulk, which has been simultaneously controversial and predictive of its own controversy, which, I mean, anyone could have guessed. But Dan, do you want to introduce She-Hulk and we can get into it?
Sure. She-Hulk is first, She-Hulk the character was created as a female counterpart to the Bruce Banner character, and she quickly sort of carved a niche for herself out for being a more funny, irreverent version of the character. She would often break the fourth wall, at least in her original comic book series. Later iterations of the character would kind of tone that aspect down a bit. But she ended up creating sort of her own cult following. There actually were plans for a She-Hulk movie in the late 80s. I think Canon Pictures was going to make
so she's film. A pretty old character. I didn't know that.
Yes, yeah.
That actually, that just makes the jokes about why don't they make new characters instead of just a girl version of a character? It's funnier now because she's so old. Because part of that critique is because of I think it was the early 2010s phase of Marvel being kind of a resurgence of female versions of characters or different interpretations. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, She-Hulk's been around for over 40 years.
I had no idea. Totally new. That's why I'm cutting you off. Sorry. It's just new information. Content drip.
Yeah, actually, hold on. Let me to double check. There was supposed to be a She-Hulk movie. I want to, who was supposed to, Bridget Nielsen was going to play the character. Bridget Nielsen. So
that even makes the last episode, the intro, being a recreation of the original kind of Hulk.
Yes,
theme thing. It makes it a little more fun.
Yeah, and it was called Savage She-Hulk, which was the name of her first comic series, which was fun. But it was like a shot-for-shot remake of the Bill Bixby, Lou Ferrigno Hulk show from the 80s.
Which looked cool. They could have saved a lot of CG money by just having that suit. I mean, she would have been sweating all the time.
They actually got a male bodybuilder to play the Hulk version of She-Hulk.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah,
because it would have. I thought it was going to be like an Oscar Isaac in Apocalypse situation where, when he's not shooting, he has to go to a trailer that's extreme air conditioning and sit alone for like a couple hours.
Poor
So
guy.
bad.
Poor guy.
Can't even use his iPhone because it's not touch sensitive with the suit.
But She-Hulk, the show, is a 2022 9-episode season of television put out by Marvel Studios, streaming on Disney Plus. It is created by Jessica Gao. You remember as the person who wrote the Pickle Rick episode of Rick and Morty. It includes a pretty, what I consider to be pretty strong writing cast, including Dana Schwartz, who a big fan of. Check out Noble Blood. Zeb Wells, who's a former writer for comics as well as Robot Chicken. We also have Kat Coro as directing quite a few episodes. The premise of the show is that Jennifer Walters, played by Tatiana Maslany, who, if you watch Orphan Black, you're very familiar with her. She played like 7 different characters in that one show. She is the sister or cousin of Bruce Banner. I don't remember which one it is.
Cousin.
Okay. I believe it's sister in the comics, but I might be wrong. I never really read any She-Hulk comics. So we're getting into characters that I'm less familiar with. Werewolf by Night. I've never read any stories with that character. So, but early on, she gets some of his blood in her system. And so it causes her to turn to the Hulk. It's implied that it might be somewhat genetic too, like something about their DNA reacting with the super soldier serum. But that's not really super duper explored. But so she, despite having a promising career as a lawyer, she also is turning into a Hulk, much to her annoyance, as she wants to be taken seriously as a lawyer and focus on doing that. But inevitably, because she is now a Hulk, she just keeps getting pulled into all these ridiculous situations. The main one being that she actually gets hired by a law firm who is opening up specifically a superhero law division, which creates some, what I think are some of the highlights of the show, where she has to cover some superhero related stories. Mr. Immortal, who has been getting out of marriages by committing suicide, even though he can't die. She has to help Wong, who's suing a magician who stole stuff from commentate. Lots of what I think are silly but fun premises. And kind of on purpose, it turns out the main overarching story is both not focused on as much and less interesting. And that's partially by design. I kind of have mixed feelings about that, which I'm sure we'll get into when we get into the very talked about finale of the show. I mentioned before, and it's almost like this was kind of specifically, I requested I want these shows to be less connected to the Marvel Cinematic Universe and kind of more focused on something completely separate from them. I want things that are more episodic and include more minor characters. I think that's more fun. And I also just like things to be different. I want them to take more creative risks. I want them to try things different narratively. And I will say She-Hulk is, other than WandaVision, one of the only one of these to take advantage of the fact that it is a streaming show, particularly in the finale. So it does a lot of things I specifically have been requesting. And of course, the big thing, which is not really a spoiler because in the trailers, but they do, Charlie Cox does reprise his role as Matt Murdock in Daredevil. And what I think is many people's favorite episode of the season. And he even shows up in the finale in kind of an amusing way. And it was just wonderful to see him back again, which gives this show so many points for me. But I found it to be a very amusing, if not always funny. Like, it's one of those shows that it's funnier on paper, and a lot of things I found myself kind of like cracking a smile at as opposed to actually laughing. But it was consistently entertaining. I found that a lot of the characters were actually quite likable and endearing. And I have very mixed feelings on, they do the thing where they do something that's purposefully kind of dumb and look at the camera and be like, well, that's kind of stupid, huh? And it's like, well, you could just have not done that thing.
Yes.
and that probably would have been better. And I do think that it does overexceed its own grasp a bit, where thematically the finale is as a standalone episode of television, it's really good. I like it a lot. But as a payoff to a season of television, it definitely leaves a lot of things kind of in the air. And some people might find it unsatisfying, while other people will just be so just amused by how weird it gets. But that's going to be the thing that's very divisive. But overall, I found it to be a very entertaining season of television. I actually think a lot of the conversations around the show are much more intense than the show itself ever is, as the show is very light and silly. There is some really strong performances, particularly from our central character. And like I said, I just love seeing Daredevil again. So I found it to be one of the better Disney Plus shows by quite a bit. It's much more memorable than all the shows. It introduces so many fun, weird characters. Leapfrog is great. I love all the characters at the retreat. They actually bring in the Wrecking Crew, who I always thought was stupid, but here they are in the show, and they're actually use them, what I think, in a way that works for them. But I found it to be a solid 9 episodes. I would like another 10 episode season that's even more divorced from any of this. It is just a straight up lawyer show.
Hey there, it's your friendly neighborhood call to action. Just checking in on you. Hope you're doing all right. I'm just stopping by to say, if you enjoy the show, you can always subscribe and write a review for Cinematic Doctrine. There's iTunes, Podchaser, basically anywhere you listen. You can give us a shout out with a thumbs up, 5 stars, gripping positivity. Or if you hate the show, you can say that too.
Wait, what? What are you saying? Why are you saying that?
Well, I'm not going to tell them what to do, Ted. They're free to do what they want. Our analytics say we got a lot of listeners in the US, and they love their freedoms. And you're also free to check out our Twitter. Very active there. We host polls, memes. There's also the Cinematic Doctrine Facebook group called Cinematic Doctrine Facebook Group. If you want to join, just answer the questions, read the rules, and tell them the podcast sent you. Also, you should check out our website. Some really cool stuff there. Editorials, written reviews for movies we haven't had time to cover. Always check out cinematicdoctrine.com when you get the chance. Oh, Ted also told me I shouldn't forget to mention the Patreon. Something about you can support us or something? Wait, Ted, I thought this was like a hobby thing. You want me to
expand Cinematic Doctrine. You know this already.
Right. Yeah, I forgot. I'm the one who put all this together. Yeah, Cinematic Doctrine has a Patreon. For as little as $3 a month, you can gain access to early uncut episodes of the podcast. Oh, and did I mention, you get to tell us what to do. That's right, each month you get to vote on a movie we discuss on the show. Anyways, I gotta run, so I'll see you guys later.
Melvin, what did you think?
Yeah, I put this one off. I just wasn't really, it's not that I wasn't interested in the show. I guess I was, because, and the more that I heard about it being more of just a comedy on its own, like that interested in me more. I found that actually more lighter and appealing to watch than just like a Hawkeye or something where like, I don't know. I don't even really need to explain that one. I think it just makes sense. But yeah, and when I finally did watch it, like it was a really steady, like press play. I want to watch the next one. I want to watch the next one. Not because I was like, what's the plot line? Tell me what's going to happen next. But because I just like the characters. And that's actually one of the benefits of like putting the narrative to the side is that if you just have good characters, I come back for the characters. That's why you keep watching Seinfeld. That's why you keep watching The Office. Like you want to see where these characters end up going. And that like was just interesting to me that like this show just did so well with just having good enough characters that I just wanted to keep going. Like even the silly side ones, like Titania were just kind of fun and like goofy that like I just wanted to keep watching the show and see how like if this character is put into the scene, how's it going to affect that character in that scene. And so to that end, I enjoyed that. I also was really like interested in the fact that like the show is ironically commentating on exactly how people are reacting to the show.
Yes.
Which is really like not hard for the show to have done. Like you could just expect it, but the fact that it was so like spot on, like, I don't know, that was really like clever to me. But obviously these are being written by millennials who are in the post-internet age. So it makes sense that they would be so aware of like, yeah, these people are writing these mean things about you on this website called Intelligentsia. And like, even on the sidebar, we noticed it before they opened it. Like we even paused it, but it says like, is She-Hulk a slut? And it's like just a picture of her in her suit, like of her breasts, but it's not even like graphic. It's just stupid. And like that kind of stuff was just really funny. And like obvious, right? Like, cause that's the sort of thing that you see on like, not that you're going, I hope you're not listening or going to bad websites. Like, I don't know, Breitbart type BS websites that are just total, like you want to talk about fake news. I mean, come on. But like websites like that, right? Like where it's just slander and it's like really stupid, but they're like making jokes about that are all pretty clever, a little heavy-handed. And that's like one of the problems of the show is I think it's too heavy-handed up to the final episode being just too heavy-handed with its metatextual stuff. Like when your metatextual stuff is both text and metatext, it's really frustrating to me. Not to just immediately jump to the final episode, but that's kind of like, I don't know, it's your final episode. It's like ending your final shot of like a really great movie and then turning to like a gross toilet. Like that to me would like, no one would talk about your movie. They'd be talking about why was the final shot a gross toilet. Like, that's really stupid. And that's kind of like, not that it's the equivalent, but that's kind of like the problem, I think, with the show, is that the meta text kind of just gets annoying, and it gets in the way of the fact that, like, it's a fun lawyer show with a suiciding superhero. Like, that's funny. Or like Leapfrog was really funny, and like you get all the meta text kind of got in the way of that to me. But it's also like funny. Like, I don't know. It's confusing to me. I don't really know if I think the show was great. I think the show was very enjoyable, and more enjoyable than some of the more serious stuff that the other shows had. Like, yeah, way better than Hawkeye, but not quite in the way that I think the show itself wants to be. But yes, it's interesting to say, but it does have more in common with the WandaVision or even Loki than like any of the other shows, because it takes advantage of like its format as a show. And I think Loki's also just benefited by being 6 episodes. So there's that too. But yeah, I thought it was good. I thought it was fun. We laughed a lot. We enjoyed it. Like I said, it was an easy binge because it was all very fun and very short. Like, the show is 9 episodes, but it's not 9 hours of a show, or like a Stranger Things syndrome of being like 20 hours. But like,
these episodes were like 30 minutes. So.
Yes, and they varied. Like, it varied in length. But yeah, and we can't go without mentioning the CG, but the CG's fine. But I do think like we'd be remiss not to mention, like, we are hitting a point where, like, I think people are just interested in watching a show that's real, and She-Hulk is not very real. The first episode is probably the roughest because it's the least real. There's just scenes in it that aren't live action because it's just fake. It's not real. And like, I don't know. I just, part of why I like the aesthetic of Halloween Ends and the Halloween, that trilogy, is because it's set in a real location with real people, and it just feels real, and the color correction makes it real, and all of it makes it real. I mean, movies aren't real, but that's like the thing. Like, at least try and be real. And like this, like, it's not even like a heightened reality of like a superhero world. It's just fake. And that just, I don't know, that affected my experience, that like you just see something and you're like, that's a backlot, that's a set, but not even like a Hollywood backlot or a set where it's fun. It's like just it's the Mandalorian dome. Like, it's just, so I don't know. It was good. I enjoyed it. I don't think I probably reacted to it like some people online are, but I'm also not online, so I really don't know. But I can assume that it's not very good. I know on Letterboxd, interestingly enough, I think the stands are not watching the show, so it was getting hit by people who are just tired of the MCU. And it's unfortunate that this one's the last show in the Phase 4 because it's going to get the most hate, I think, because of it, because we're just so tired. But I don't know. What do you think? What do you think of what I think about this show that people think about?
What do you think about what I think? I mean, what do you think about what I think about what you think? I do think it suffers from the lack of stakes, but I think some of the diehards, like, they're invested in the ongoing larger narrative. And so when you have something that's so disconnected from that, which other people see as a positive, there's going to be like that core audience might not react as strongly. And so, like, I think as more people actually started watching it, I think the perception kept improving, where people were actually giving it a chance and realizing that, like, okay, yeah, it's like a silly,
this is pretty funny
show. Yeah, but it's like, it's fun. And like, I think weirdly that it has some of the more nerdier things in it. Like, you have these like minor characters that are not big, known superheroes necessarily, but also like, it brought Tim Roth back into the MCU. We got Abomination again. This is a show that reintroduces like Daredevil, you know? And so like in that regard, it's the most oddly connected to the rest of the MCU. Like, they introduced Scar Banner at the end, like, big spoiler for the end, but like, it's the show that featured probably the most like consistent amount of cameos and appearances than any of these other shows, which is like weird. Like, you know, so like, I'm not sure which was part of the metatextual thing where She-Hulk is trying to tell her own story and trying to take control of her own narrative. But all these other things just keep happening, keep interrupting. She gets pulled away to a wedding. All these other characters just keep showing up. And so like the last episode's kind of supposed to be her taking control of that, so to speak. But again, like, it's the show that's the most clogged with just stuff happening versus like, yeah, a meteorite's never going to blow up the earth, but, you know, Wong is in multiple episodes. Hulk is in multiple episodes. Abomination's in multiple episodes. So like, it's the show that's the most like connected in that way.
Yeah.
which I think helped endear it to some fans. Where like initially people were like, "Why do I want to watch a show about She-Hulk? She-Hulk's not a character I care about. CGI looks bad in the trailers." And it's like, it's just about this. Like, there's no ongoing plot. There's no mystical MacGuffin they're trying to get. There's no Infinity Stones. There's no whatever. Why am I watching this? Which is just a weird attitude for television shows in general, which is, I don't watch shows because of how they tie into some larger narrative. I watch shows because it seems like a good show. But so like there was that portion of the online discourse that just views any inclusion of like a women as something that's like part of some sort of agenda, which She-Hulk kind of leaned into a little bit by making the quote villains like a angry
Incels.
group of
It's great.
who
so
have a
funny.
website that looks suspiciously like Reddit that they use, where they make like bad memes and stuff, which some see that as poking the bear. My thing with it was like, it's funny, but also like
Incels are not a bear. They think they are bears. Actually, maybe they are bears, but
well, I'm just saying
but they're not bears. Like, why? Who cares if we poke them?
well, like in the sense that it's like it might create more online discourse.
Whatever
is what I'm saying. But like, my thing was less about that because I think that's actually pretty clever. Because
yes, it is.
Like, okay, like who would She-Hulk's big enemy be? Would it be Tatiana, played by Jamil Jamil from some of you know from The Good Place, or is it going to be just people that just don't like her existing? But the problem is like they're kind of isn't an ongoing antagonist. Like they are the de facto one, but each episode is so self-contained, and there's kind of in a background like overarching antagonist. But like in the last episode, they point out that like, oh, this kind of doesn't make any sense, does it? So like they kind of discard it. So like I appreciate that about the show. Like they kind of knew what people would complain about. They complain about CGI. They complain about She-Hulk being a ripoff of the Incredible Hulk, which is, I mean, no one complains that Robin's a ripoff of Batman, but whatever. And they're going to complain that she's too provocative, even though she really isn't that provocative. They even included, and I also thought the twerking thing wasn't funny, but like I didn't care about it. I thought
it's like silly, but it's not like I'm not like cackling.
But then there's later one of the videos they leak is of her twerking and making fun of her. So I was like, they even knew that would happen. So
you may not know this, but the easiest way you can show your support for Cinematic Doctrine is to rate and review the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen. So press pause and share your thoughts. We'd love to hear what you have to say. And then press play again so you can hear the rest of the show.
But yeah, like, so I do think they did a good job of kind of sort of anticipating what people would react to. I think if the show was funnier, I think if it was a stronger comedy and not just like kind of amusing it felt like just a bunch of slice of life anime episodes sometimes.
Yes.
Which some people like that. There's whole animes that are just slice of life episodes. But I think if it had more consistently strong jokes, I think people would have liked it more. But as like, I found this central character to be so charming that I just had fun watching the show, because also I just knew Daredevil would be in it at some point, so I just kept waiting for Daredevil to show up. But like, yeah, I found everyone strangely endearing. I actually found myself cheering for Blonsky to reform by the end, and was happy to find that he had reformed, and he had no idea what was going on. So, but yeah, do you want to talk about Daredevil?
It was good. I thought his character was still his own character, kind of being an independent leader, without being a leader. Like, he tells people what to do. Like, he treats this place like it's his city. Like, you could practically hear him say that. So he was still the same character, honestly. Me and Kat always joke, though, that like, it's so funny he has all this Catholic guilt, except for when it comes to sex. Like, he doesn't seem to worry about that, but it's still funny. But yeah, like, I thought that was fine, and I like the new suit. I think it's cool. The reason for the new suit's cool too. I guess sometimes you gotta get a new guy to make your suit. I guess Melvin wasn't working out. I don't know. But
have you watched all of Daredevil?
Not yet. No.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, we'll talk about content drip. That's another frustrating thing. It's like, now I got to finish those. But, and I only have like a couple more seasons left to get through, but still, it's just a lot. There's so many.
Watching you just fall apart in front of my
get
eyes.
Sadder. I'm just like getting sadder, and we're just wanted. You can see it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought it was fine. What about you?
Oh, I was so pumped. Like, it's like, the one fanboy thing I still have in me towards MCU is like the television shows that predate Marvel Studios taking over television,
because they're good shows.
Yeah, I love the Defenders shows. I watched all Visions of S.H.I.E.L.D. I'm not gonna pretend like it's the best show ever, but there's a lot of charming things in there. Cloak and Dagger is really fun as like a teen drama. So whenever these characters pop back up, gets me pumped. But the concern is always, how will they be portrayed? Will it feel like the same character? And I do think Matt Murdock, like, it's the same character. Like, Charlie Cox is so extremely charming, and he's just such a likable screen presence. And they even like lampshade some stuff. Like, they set up a hallway fight only for She-Hulk to interrupt it, which I thought was actually a fun gag.
Me too.
They used the Daredevil theme song very briefly, which got me amped. I thought that was a really fun touch. And I like that this is a Daredevil post the events of the Netflix shows. So he appears to be at peace with himself. After all the events of the things that happened to him, he now is kind of moved into almost like a grizzled veteran status, where he has a great little superhero pep talk where he's explaining to Jennifer Walters that like being both is good. Like, and I like that they utilize the character that way, where you have, again, this is the good thing of a shared universe, where you have someone who has done everything that she has done. Essentially, he is both a lawyer and a hero at night. And so he's explained to her the good that she can do with that, where she can help people with the law, and then she can help people when the law fails them.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is a great utilization of a character that fans are familiar with, and a character that people are fond of. And then plus, like, it's just fun watching them interact. Like, the chemistry they have is immediate and strong, and I like them actually as a couple. I think that'd be very cute if that continues on. But yeah, I was worried that he'd just be like, be hit with like the MCU joke ray, and he'd just be making a bunch of dumb one-liners and stuff. But most of his comedy came from him being just like a witty guy who likes to make snide comments.
Personality, yeah.
And then he shows up in the finale for reasons that we'll get into, and he's just at a family picnic thing, and I thought that was great, where he's dealing with like her like family being embarrassing, and he's weathering the storm really well. And seeing Daredevil react to the Incredible Hulk showing up is so surreal and neat that I just enjoy that.
That was cool. I like that.
And they're like questioning him like about how the fact that his practice tends to be pro bono, like, you're not going to make any money doing that. And it's like, you know, stuff like that really elevates a show. And that's like we're watching her try and get like a hippie abomination to do things he's supposed to. That's fun. Watching her try and defend Leapfrog who is the worst catchphrase in the world, and he's just such an idiot that she can't even help him. That's fun. So but I mean, the big thing is the finale, and you seem more negative on the finale, more on the negative side of the finale, and this is a very polarizing thing. I also have mixed feelings on it. I tend to lean more positive towards it, just as a thing that exists. But what is your feeling on the finale?
Yeah, so the finale basically is they set up this thing where like somebody's trying to get her blood, right? So they tried to.
A lot of people thought it would be the leader from the Incredible Hulk movie.
The leader. I don't remember a guy from the Incredible Hulk.
Tim Blake Nelson, scientist character, at the end in that movie, he gets him. Stuff, and he's coming back. Apparently, they said he's going to be in the 4th Captain America movie. So
he's funny. So why not? He's a good performer, character actor. Basically, he's kind of the same guy. He seems like in his movies, but at least in the few that I've seen. But yeah, these people are trying to collect their blood. Lo and behold, there's also like people who are trying to take advantage of She-Hulk because they don't like her. They're the incel crew. And at the end, they basically satisfy a line from the beginning that Bruce Banner has, where it's basically like, if society starts to see you as a monster, it takes a very long time for them not to. And it's almost impossible. And then at the end, she's getting an award, but like incel 4chaners take over a television behind her, and they dox her, put all her information up, as well as a non-graphic but still implied sex tape. And she punches the screens. They break down. People run out of the gala. She attacks somebody. The person runs away. And I guess it's that one team. It's not Sword, but it's like a team of, she gets arrested, put in the same jail cell that Tim Roth's character is put in, and she finally gets out, whatever, and ends up finding out where these incels are meeting. And she gets there, and it turns out that Tim Roth is the Abomination. He's not bad though. He's just doing public speaking events, which was pretty funny. So it's like he probably doesn't even know who he's talking to. He's just going to do his thing and then leave. Just talking about recovery. And the one guy then says like, well, we were able to synthesize your blood and we're going to turn into you and we're going to fight you. And he stabs himself. And my first thought is, we literally learned that only the Banners can handle this. So I was like, cool, we'll get some body horror and he'll like explode like in that episode of What If or something. And that didn't happen. I was disappointed by that. But then she starts talking, breaking the fourth wall and is like, this isn't right. And then Bruce Banner shows up. Why is he here? And then Daredevil, no, he didn't show up yet. But basically she's like, no. And it like cuts to black. And then she breaks out of the Disney Plus menu for total fourth wall breaking, goes into the making of show, the assembled thing, starts walking around the back lots, which I curious if they actually were. My first thought is there's no way this would be security breaching. And she goes to talk. She goes to the writer's room. It's the writers. It'd be cute if it was the real writers. I hope it is. And they're like, she's like, I want to talk to Kevin. And they're like, nobody talks to Kevin. She's like, well, I'm going to go find him. So she ends up getting into a fight with security. She finally gets to this room. It's very not good CG. It is that's when you knew that the writers may have been in it, but the CGI people were not. She talks to Kevin, and it's a robot, and it goes, "I'm the perfect algorithm. I decide all the shows and movies, whatever." She basically, in short, I only feel inclined to describe all the events because it's important to why people are not liking it, but she basically talks with the Kevin robot, which has a hat, which is pretty funny, and says like, I want to change the ending of the show. He goes, no. Then she goes, yes. And she goes, okay. And then they change the end of the show. And when they get back to the show, it's just everyone's being arrested. Daredevil falls out of the sky and does his 3-point landing. And it's like, why am I here? It doesn't matter. We're dating now. And then the show basically ends. And Tim Roth goes back to jail for like 10 years. It's a long time, but I guess whatever. Maybe it's the tie-up that he won't be in the show.
He gets broken out by
Wong. Right, yes,
so.
And Wong then breaks him out because they want to talk about shows. The Sopranos stuff was funny. We are living in a very good time of television or whatever. It's really funny. Just as he's in the last of his shows. What would have been great is if he was watching one of the Marvel Netflix shows or Disney in some capacity. It would have been like Halloween showing The Thing, but...
Enjoying this episode? Grab that share link and tell your friends. Word of mouth is the most effective way for a podcast to reach new listeners, so don't be shy. Share the episode wherever you can.
Yeah, I will start by, I don't know what the controversy online is other than people saying like not having commentary on the fact that these shows don't know how to have an ending is not ending a show well. I think that's true. It's like you said earlier, having a gag about like, did we just do that? Doesn't retroactively make the joke funnier by being aware. Like self-awareness is not awareness. Like it can actually be part of not being aware. I'm name dropping them again, but I just rewatched The Best of the Worst of Red Letter Media, where they watched one of these movies that was like a post Tarantino movie. And it's very frustrating to watch because it was just so like post Tarantino. And like, it also tries to be self-aware, but it's like, it doesn't matter. Like you're still being like obnoxious about it. And like, that's just kind of how I felt about it. I didn't feel mad about it. I just thought like, I don't like this choice. I get it. Like it hits all the metatextual beats that the show has that are underneath it, but it's becoming so textual. It's actually annoying. I also felt that the show wasn't as like, it didn't do the breaking the fourth wall, Deadpool, Fleabag stuff to a point that was different than what we're used to. Like, and so when it becomes like I'm breaking out of the Disney Plus screen, it was so beyond what's like it's not like Enola Holmes is about to break out into Netflix. Like this concept, this trope isn't so new that it just didn't seem like the precedent was set that we were going to go that far. And so it was just not as rewarding. Not that I felt the show needed to be rewarding at all. Like I actually just thought like a simple fight at the end, whatever. But also like, I didn't really care for that final episode. I liked all the other drama stuff. Like, I don't know, something more simple would have been more enjoyable. It's just, I think it's just okay. Like, I wish there were 3 more episodes and they were just simple dramas, like a simple, like do the CSI thing, right? Where it's every episode's a new killer, but it's somehow maybe affected or tied to, or Lawrence Fishburne gets a notice and it's that one serial killer that keeps toying with them. And then the final episode's the confrontation with it, but it's still within the confines of she's having the law, like be a part of it. And then she goes and beats them up because the law didn't work. Something like that. Like the Ribbit episode. Like that would have been good if that was the main plot line to me. Like if that was something, but it just wasn't. So it's fine. I think it's clever and creative and goofy, but it's not as clever or creative or goofy as I think it is trying to be. It's more like the geeky nerd equivalent of being creative and clever. And that is not actually that creative or clever. That's like saying, it'd be a cool Funko Pop? Obama. That would be a cool Funko Pop. Right, guys? And then everyone laughs, but it's actually not that funny if you don't care about Funko Pops. Like, this is only the funny version if you specifically care about the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But even then, it doesn't sound like it's going over well. I don't know. What did you feel about this?
So, my wife was also not super enthused about it. She thought it was interesting. Like, it was like, yeah, that's good. It was kind of fun, I guess.
Also, by the way, I just forgot to mention it, but it also strips away from Gwenpool, in my opinion. The potential for Gwenpool, like this to me was a Gwenpool thing to do that. I don't know, but maybe it's because Gwenpool's stuck in her world, in the Marvel world, that it makes it funnier, but I don't know. That to me was also disappointing. Anyways, go ahead. Sorry.
I think if they hit the themes harder all season, like leading up to that, like to have a big concept ending, I think it'd have been stronger if like it had kind of foreshadowed this sort of thing more and more.
Yeah, like what if like it got too loud for Daredevil, so she pulls a remote out and turns my TV down?
Oh yeah, that'd been fun. Like yeah, like both in terms of like what she does as far as fourth wall breaking goes, as well as just thematically. Like if I don't know, I felt like it could have just been bled up too strongly.
Yes.
I'm of two minds of it. Like one is it again, like I really do appreciate how different out of the box it was. And again, like to play the card
out of the television box. You just let that one go and you didn't keep going. It was a total pun. Set up and payoff.
Yeah, so like as people point out online, in the comics, She-Hulk's fourth wall breaking is much more overt. Like she literally will just like break out of panels and go to other panels. She'll walk through the ads in the comics and stuff like that. She'll talk directly to the writers and stuff. But like again, as far as what we know within this universe, like it was limited to her just talking to the camera. So it is a big leap in terms of her doing that. Granted, it's not out of the realm of possibility. Like we've seen lots of crazy things happen in Marvel, and so like that didn't bother me too much, especially because I kind of anticipated like she would do some sort of massive fourth wall breaking as part of the finale. And yeah, I appreciate all the in-jokes. It felt like jokes written for me, like them talking about the future of X-Men, complaining about the way all these finales are all the same and all this stuff. Like those all felt like jokes like that were written by people who were like on Twitter and Reddit and, reading fan responses and stuff. So it felt very insider baseball. And so like in that way, I felt very catered to as far as that sequence goes. But like, it is also narratively not super satisfying. Like all these characters stuff I've been invested in just don't matter kind of at the end, So it's like Intelligentsia gets wrapped up, I guess. And then, Tim Roth goes back to jail and Hulk is just back from Sakaar, And so, okay, I get it's fine. Like it's interesting and it's unique, but it didn't necessarily feel like a full blown payoff to all the stuff that I've been invested in. So I'm very mixed on it. Like I appreciate it for being different, and I appreciate it for giving me a couple laughs and just being so different and weird. And of course, they tried to get Kevin Feige to voice Kevin, and he refused apparently because he just wasn't interested in that. He also made them they wanted the robot to be wearing a hat, and he said that wouldn't make any sense. So they made the hat part of the robot itself.
It's a comedy. It doesn't need to make sense.
I love Kevin. Like he seems like very like he just seems like a nerd, like in a good way. Like why would that happen? So I overall She-Hulk is like it's a very amusing, interesting little show, and I love the characters, but I definitely feel like there's potential here. I think I would like to see a second season where they kind of get more out of the box, like they focus more on the lawyer stuff and they like explore these characters more, and maybe Daredevil could be a supporting character or something. But I think as far as the Disney Plus shows go, it's the one that made me feel the most like I was watching like a real show. Like I didn't feel like I was watching a 6-hour Falcon and Winter Soldier movie or a 6-hour Hawkeye movie. And I like Hawkeye. Like I really like the characters. Of course, obviously, as you may have guessed, I really loved Kingpin being in the show. That was a big bonus for me. This felt like a step in the right direction, and I am interested. And this, I say this after every one of these things. I'm interested in what they do next, and that's gosh darn it, they just keep hooking me in. Yeah. Anything else from She-Hulk that you?
Not really. It's probably going to be our shortest discussion episode at this point, but I don't know. I thought the show was okay. I thought the performances were good. The jokes are serviceably funny and occasionally really quite good. Like I said, I think the ending is okay. But it's hitting its metatextual stuff, but it's not hitting its text, and that's the biggest problem. Like, you still have a story you got to wrap up, and like I don't know. That's like how does this power equate to like you thought Kang was powerful? What the heck was this? Right? Like, this is crazy. Like, I don't know. Like, it's just like
could she just pause a fight and then like go to the writers and make them write the villain to not exist anymore?
Right.
You know?
And that even further, I'll call it the extension of the Patreon discussion. But like, when you talk about correlation between these shows and the movies, like if they're not separated enough and that's not distinct, like, I don't know, that kind of pulls out and pulls away from some of the fiction, the fragility of the fiction. And so that's kind of disappointing. Like, I don't know, Werewolf by Night can tear people apart and they die, and like Man-Thing can burn someone alive, and then She-Hulk punches someone into the air and the person falls down and they don't die or have any broken ribs, or they just end up being fine. And like, okay, I guess she's not that powerful then, because for some reason physics was cool with it. I don't know. It's very bizarre, and that's just like, it works, but it also doesn't. Like, I think that in phase 4, it's just everything is pining to be its own thing, but it also still has to be a part of something. And all of us are kind of engaging this media in the same way, where I think we all, if you're not doing it on purpose, your brain's doing it, where it wants it to all be its own thing, and you're getting a little upset and you don't know why. So you just go to Twitter and you ask your friends, She-Hulk was a little weird, wasn't it? But then like people who are a little more in tune are probably going like, yeah, it would be nice if this was its own thing through and through, and it wasn't limited by other stuff. I don't know, like in the way that it can still have its hero or cameo of the day, hero of the day kind of thing, of the episode kind of thing, but also be its own thing. I don't know. It's just, it makes me feel some kind of way, not bad, but just some kind of way. And it's just tiresome. Like, it's exhausting. And so, yeah, like Kang is way more powerful than those celestial beings in Eternals. So Eternals kind of has no weight or grasp, but then now She-Hulk can literally affect my Disney Plus. So like, not really, but like, well, you know, and so like, does Kang have any powers? I guess only if he's in the theaters. Maybe that's what happens. Like, She-Hulk tries to turn off the thing, and Kang goes, little did you know, you don't have licensure in AMC theaters. Ah! She-Hulk freaks out. I don't know. Like, and do I want that? Like, I don't really think so. Like, it's just, I don't know. I don't know. It's clever and cute, I guess. But like I said,
this is like the nerdiest like thing I've ever like of later.
It's the Obama
like,
Funko Pop.
What's the power leveling of fourth wall breaking?
It's the Obama Funko Pop. It's like, and it probably exists. Someone's going to tweet at us.
They make Funko Pops every year for all the presidents, like candidates.
See what I mean, man? Like, who wants this? Like, it's come on. I don't like this. This is like, it's just
this
ruining
is very
my day.
strange. Like,
it's the worst episode of the podcast. It's ruining my life.
I don't know what you're talking about. Like,
it is.
You just yelling Funko Pop at me over and over.
It just makes me upset. I'm upset, Dan. I'm getting sick again. It's happening right now. I'm going to throw up. I'm going to get sick and throw up. It's just terrible. Hey there, listener. Want to influence the podcast? Head on over to patreon.com/cinematic doctrine and support the show for $3 a month. In doing so, you'll be able to vote on a movie poll that picks a film we discuss each month. So jump on over there and have your voice heard. It's a show, and I think it bites off more it can chew without realizing that it's doing it. And it's disappointing, but it's also fine. Like, I really think the show would have been best if it just stayed limited to its lawyer stuff, and I think you kind of felt the same. I think most people felt the same.
Yeah.
The lawyer stuff's fun. I like these random superheroes that are like, this is my power. This is how I broke the law using it. Okay. Let's figure out how we could either put you in jail or not. And I really like that stuff. It's cool.
Yeah, and I would say also great use of the Jennifer Walters character is like similar to Matt Murdock, but like she typically when the characters like in the comics need some legal like representation, Jennifer Walters is the one who pops up. So like in future movies and shows, like when a superhero needs some help, that's a good time for a Jennifer Walters cameo, you know? So it's a great utility player character where you can just like plug her into so many different things because of that. So like I would like this thing where like she's the like superheroes, and then like Daredevil is Matt Murdock is the lawyer for like vigilante like street level heroes.
Yeah, and
I think that'd be cool.
To compare this even to DC, like part of what the Snyderverse loses is it's like these guys are gods and they're above humans and they only care a little bit about humans, except for when they fight in Metropolis against Zod. Then humans are ants and they're in my way. But like in this, with this idea of having like a superhero lawyer is like, yeah, you might be super powerful and you can just leave the planet Earth. But if you're in the United States, you got to follow our rules. And I like that then it creates superheroes into an institution equal or beside like the government, because I don't know, it's kind of interesting to have that. Like, okay, you might have gotten into a fight, but you got into a fight at Denny's. And now Denny's has legal right to say you're not allowed to be there. Is there going to be like a cake maker who won't make cakes for superheroes? Like, is that a thing? And can the legal law be like, no, you got to make cakes for superheroes? Just because they're a superhero doesn't mean you can't make cakes for them. So like, that's interesting to me. I want something like that. Maybe that's too on the nose, but that sounds perfect for She-Hulk since they're just trying to be on the nose anyway. That's all more interesting to me than doing metatextual wall breaking at the end here with this episode, or even like Hawkeye. Like, so I don't know. It's like, explore more of that, like get some good writing into that. That sounds more interesting. Like, so yeah, a second season would be great. I think that would be really fun to have, and having more of these court cases. The other characters are fun. The fact that she's just in her superpowered state most of the time, that's cool. But yeah, simultaneously better than I expected, went directions I didn't know it would do, and then also disappointing, like now that I know the directions it's went. But it really is almost exclusively that last episode. Like, it's not the rest. It's almost like better than Falcon, but has the same problem where like it doesn't know how to end the show, and it just kind of has this weird thing going on. So it's good. I had some good laughs. Any final thoughts before we recommend stuff?
Yeah, I think it's solid. I enjoyed it. I would like more things that are episodic like this was.
Please.
And it's good to see Daredevil again, man. I really like Daredevil. Like that's like that one episode really overrides a lot of this stuff for me. So
give me Punisher. Give a case where she has to take care of Punisher too. That'd be kind of fun.
Yeah.
Like a parallel to the Daredevil ones, except it's more goofy this time. You get Sam Raimi violence in there too. That'd be kind of fun. But...
Hey. We have some Patreon goals we're trying to reach. If we get enough support, we'll review each God's Not Dead movie, as well as The Inhumans, that really bad Marvel show from a couple years ago. Head over to patreon.com/cinematic doctrine and share your support.
I don't know. I guess we'll do recommendations. Let's kick it. Let's do it. What recommendation do you have, Dan?
Oh, geez. I totally forgot to have another recommendation.
I did too, but I found the one that I had in the back of my head.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Why don't you recommend something first, Mel?
Okay. We can just do one each then, to save us some time and effort of finding recommendations. I've been this recommendation comes with a little mini game. I just want to know how many how many streaming sites you know, Daniel. Can you name the amount of streaming sites that you know exist? And I'll count off.
Like by name?
By name. Yes.
Freevee.
Okay. 1.
Tubi.
Uh-huh.
Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
Hulu.
Mm-hmm.
Shudder.
Mm-hmm.
Filmstuck. Paramount Plus. Peacock. Did I already say Hulu?
Yes.
Disney Plus.
Okay.
HBO Max.
Mm-hmm.
Pluto TV.
Yeah.
I mean, are we counting like really specific ones like sports streamings and stuff?
Technically, those are streaming sites, yeah.
Fight TV, DAZN, Impact Plus, Wrestling TV.
I love that we're now getting the rest of the
WWE Network.
So, clearly there's a lot of streaming services. There's so many more. It's kind of maddening, and it's really hard to know where you're trying to watch your shows and what to do. We're going to go. I mean, you named over 15 at that point. There's a new show, a new movie. Where's it on? Oh, that's the hard part. I use a website called justwatch.com. You literally go to it, justwatch.com, search a movie, and it'll immediately tell you where it is. So I will put in Nope, and it'll tell me that Nope can be bought. I mean, at this point, you can't rent it yet, but you can buy it on Apple TV. You can get it on Amazon, Google Play, YouTube, a lot of specific sites. I can also do, I'm only going to explain two, just because there was one that was really hard for me that I was trying to find, and I could only find it on one service. It was the one that you and I were talking about maybe doing. It was like a haunted house one. Oh, it's not haunt. It's called House. We were thinking of doing it for a Patreon thing, and it's not all the other houses, but it's the one that's from 2008. It's based off of Frank Peretti books. It's a Christian slasher movie. And if we were going to have to do it for Patreon, which I guess at this point, we did not, but I was going to have to know where it's at. And it turns out it's on Amazon, it's on Prime, but it's not really on many sites at all. Conversely, the other one, that's probably the episode up right now for Hangman's Curse, isn't streaming anywhere. And sometimes there's movies streaming on 2 sites. So this website is great. It is a little finicky. I find the search bar is always I have to search something twice to actually get the website to realize what I'm searching. So they need to fix that. But once you find what movie you were trying to find, it tells you where it's free. It tells you where it's subscription based. It tells you where it's rentable, and it tells you where you can buy it. And it is great. So I definitely recommend Just Watch, because it is getting very, very hard to know where stuff is now, because there's so many streaming sites. It's getting annoying, but Just Watch makes it so easy. So definitely use Just Watch for your streaming needs. Daniel, did you ever figure out what your recommendation is going to be?
Oh, so I've been reading a book, and I'm a fan of the writing of Chuck Klosterman. I just like the way he writes. I think he's amusing. I like the kind of investigating of pop culture and trying to find some sort of meaning in it. I like that stuff. Some kind of find it a little try hard, a little trite. But I enjoy his writing, particularly in his recent-ish book, Chuck Klosterman 4. He does quite a few. The first section is mostly just interviews he did. He did those profiles he did for magazines, where he just hung out with famous people and wrote down what it was like hanging out with them and talking to them. And you get some really great nuggets, and you get some really good insights into people, everyone from Metallica to Val Kilmer to Radiohead. Really interesting stuff. He includes a really bizarre interview with Britney Spears. That's really interesting to read. And it's just if you're into pop culture, you probably are familiar with his writing to some degree. I do think this particular collection is worth picking up, at the very least, just to get some interesting insight into various pop culture figures. So 4 by Chuck Klosterman.
Thanks so much for checking out this episode of Cinematic Doctrine. If you enjoyed this episode, consider leaving a review and subscribing to the podcast. And as mentioned before, Cinematic Doctrine has a Patreon. For as little as $3 a month, you're opted into a once-a-month movie poll where you decide a movie we discuss on the podcast. There are other unique benefits that come with supporting the podcast, so be sure to check that out at patreon.com/Cinematic Doctrine. A special shout out to those who support at the Art House Theater tier on Patreon. Thank you so much, Mom, Dad, Melanie, Shirley-Ann, and Thomas. You guys are the best, and your continued monetary support is greatly appreciated. Until next time, stay cool. Want some Cinematic Doctrine swag? You're in luck. We've got 3-inch Cinematic Doctrine logo stickers exclusive for Patreon supporters. Perfect for your travel mug or laptop. Head over to patreon.com/Cinematic Doctrine, link in the show notes, and choose the independent theater tier. Doing so will net you other perks too. But let's be real, the podcast stickers are the coolest perk. So get yourself some podcast stickers by supporting on Patreon.